Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, your ultimate destination for discovering the true value and hidden history behind rare, old, and collectible stamps from around the world. In today's video, we're diving deep into the legacy and market value of one of the most iconic postage stamps in American history, the 1-cent green Benjamin Franklin stamp. This timeless piece of philatelic art has intrigued collectors for over a century, not just for its beauty and design, but for the stories it carries and the surprising value it can hold in today's stamp market. So, if you've ever come across this green stamp with Benjamin Franklin's profile and wondered whether it's just a common old stamp or a hidden treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, you've come to the right place. In this video, we'll explore its origins, variations, collectible features, and how much it's worth today in dollars. Get ready for a detailed journey through the past and into the current stamp market, only here on Stamps Old World UK. The 1-cent green Benjamin Franklin stamp was originally introduced as part of a long-running series of definitive stamps known as the Washington Franklin issues, which were produced by the United States Post Office between 1908 and 1922. The design features a beautifully engraved portrait of Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, framed within an elegant oval and accompanied by rich scroll work on either side. Printed in a bold green color, this stamp was used for basic mailing services across the country during a time when the U.S. was rapidly expanding its postal network. But while millions of these stamps were printed and circulated, only a fraction of them survived in collectible condition. Over time, different printing methods, watermarks, paper types, and perforation styles were used, creating dozens of subtle but highly important variations. For collectors, these differences can mean the value of a stamp might be just a few cents, or skyrocket into the thousands of dollars. Let's talk about condition. When it comes to evaluating the value of the 1-cent green Franklin stamp in today's market, the condition of the stamp is one of the most important factors. A used version with cancellation marks and minor damage might only be worth between $1 and $5. However, a mint condition stamp, which has never been used and still retains its original gum on the back, could be valued anywhere from $25 to $150, depending on the issue and centering. Centering refers to how well the image of Franklin is placed within the borders. Perfectly centered stamps are far more desirable and rare. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Some variations of this stamp, especially those printed on bluish paper, or those with inverted watermarks or rare coil perforations, have been sold at auctions for over $2,000 to $4,000. These rare errors and production anomalies are what drive the highest values, and they are actively sought after by elite collectors and investors alike. In today's modern collecting world, the market for rare and vintage stamps is stronger than ever. Auction houses, online marketplaces like eBay, HipStamp, and Delcamp, and specialized philatelic dealers all report steady interest in classic U.S. stamps. The 1-cent green Franklin remains a popular entry point for beginner collectors while also presenting advanced collectors with exciting challenges in identifying the rare varieties. The value of this stamp is not just tied to its physical state, it is also tied to its historical context, its rarity, and its certification status. If you believe you own a valuable variety of the Franklin 1-cent, it is highly recommended to get it authenticated by trusted institutions such as the Philatelic Foundation, Professional Stamp Experts, PSE, or the American Philatelic Society. A certificate of authenticity from one of these organizations can dramatically increase the sale price and credibility of your stamp in the global collector market. Now, let's walk through some of the key variations that can greatly affect the value of your 1-cent Franklin stamp. For example, one of the rarest types is the 1910 issue printed on bluish paper, which was created as part of an experimental series. Only a limited number were printed, and even fewer remain in pristine condition today. These are known to fetch upwards of $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the grade. Another important distinction is the perforation type. Stamps from this series came in several different perforation gauges, and having a perforation gauge tool at home can help you identify if yours is a rare type. There are also coil stamps, which were made for stamp vending machines and appear in strips. Coil versions of the Franklin 1-cent are much scarcer, and some of them with intact pairs or line pairs are considered valuable collector's pieces. Another big factor that affects stamp value is the presence of printing errors. For instance, some stamps might show double impressions, color shifts, or even misaligned perforations, all of which can significantly increase their worth. There are even documented examples of inverted watermarks, which are rare and incredibly valuable. These rare errors often don't show up in casual collections and can take years to find, but when discovered, they often lead to major profit. In fact, Expert collectors sometimes pay thousands just for the opportunity to bid on an authentic era version of this otherwise common-looking stamp. If you're holding on to a Franklin 1-cent green stamp today and wondering how to sell it, here are some useful tips. First, make sure you have high-quality scans of the front and back. Highlight any key features like color tone, watermark, perforation, and gum presence. Then, consider listing your stamp on well-known auction platforms or reach out to specialized stamp dealers. Even better, if you suspect it's a rare variation, invest in a certificate of authenticity first. This will pay off in the long run. At Stamps Old World UK, we always encourage our viewers to approach stamp collecting not just as a hobby, but as a long-term investment. Every stamp has a story, and when properly researched, those stories can turn into real market value. In 2025, the world of stamp collecting is still alive and thriving, thanks to digital platforms and online communities that make it easier than ever to connect with buyers and sellers. Whether you're collecting for passion, profit, or both, the Franklin 1-cent green stamp remains a classic and essential piece of philatelic history. It's more than just a stamp, it's a symbol of a bygone era, a tribute to American heritage, and for some collectors, a gateway to unlocking serious value. Keep in mind that stamp prices fluctuate based on demand, auction activity, and general economic conditions, so staying updated with catalogs like Scott's Specialized Catalog or subscribing to market newsletters is always a smart move. Next up, the Cent George Washington U.S. postage stamp. This small green stamp may look simple at first glance, but within its borders lies a deep and captivating story of American history, presidential legacy, and remarkable collectible value. If you've ever found this stamp in an old album, drawer, or inherited collection, you might be sitting on something more valuable than you realize. Whether you're a seasoned philatelist or just beginning your journey into the world of stamps, this video is packed with everything you need to know about the George Washington 1-cent stamp and its current market value in dollars today. So sit back and prepare for a full-length, in-depth guide brought to you by Stamps Old World UK. The 1-cent Washington stamp, like many other early American postage stamps, was not just a means of sending mail, it was a powerful national symbol. This particular design, featuring the first president of the United States, George Washington, was issued in various forms and styles throughout the early to mid-20th century. The image we focus on today most closely resembles the issues from the 1930s and 1940s, part of the presidential series, often referred to by collectors as the Prexies. This series was one of the most widely circulated and recognized stamp issues in American postal history. George Washington's dignified image appears in a classic engraved style, and the deep green color was chosen to distinguish the 1-cent denomination. This stamp saw use during a period of intense historical change, through the Great Depression, World War II, and the beginning of modern America, which adds a powerful historic value to this already iconic piece. In today's stamp collecting world, the market value of a stamp like the 1-cent Washington varies greatly depending on several key factors: condition, centering, perforation, cancellation marks, color variations, paper type, and potential printing errors. A very common, heavily used version of this stamp may only be worth a few cents, perhaps between 5 cents to $1 in a bulk collection. However, unused stamps with original gum, no hinges, and excellent centering can fetch up to $10 to $50 in today's market. And that's just the beginning. Some rare versions, particularly coil stamps, imperfect pairs, or stamps with printing errors like color shifts or miscuts, have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction. What appears to be a simple, common stamp might just be a hidden rarity when you examine the finer details. And that's exactly why identifying your specific version is critical before selling or appraising your stamp. So what makes certain Washington 1-cent stamps worth significantly more than others? The answer lies in the printing methods and production errors that occurred during different runs of the stamp. For example, some 1-cent Washington stamps were produced as part of special booklet or coil issues. These versions often lacked the same perforation on all 4 sides and were printed in smaller quantities. Additionally, stamps from private vending machine companies, such as those modified for the Scherzmack or mailometer machines, often carry unique perforations that make them far rarer and more desirable among collectors. If you own a 1-cent Washington stamp with unusual edge cuts, it's worth having it professionally evaluated, as it could be one of these scarce varieties. Another thing to look out for is the center alignment of the design, known in philately as centering. A well-centered stamp with equal spacing around all edges is far more desirable than one with the image skewed or cut off by the perforation. Stamps are graded based on centering and condition, with terms like fine, very fine, and superb, and these grades can directly impact the value. A superb mint, never hinged, perfectly centered 1 cent Washington stamp can command significantly higher prices than average quality examples. Additionally, the presence of full original gum on the back, which indicates the stamp has not been used, is a major selling point. Collectors often pay a premium for mint-condition stamps that have been carefully preserved for decades. Now let's talk about the current market for the George Washington 1 cent stamp. In 2025, vintage stamps continue to enjoy a strong and growing collector base. Online marketplaces like eBay, HipStamp, and Delcamp feature thousands of listings of the Washington 1 cent stamp, ranging from bulk sales of used examples to rare certified mint varieties. Common examples are easy to find and sell for a few dollars, but it's the rare coil types, plate number blocks, and certified errors that fetch the most attention and highest prices. Auctions at respected houses such as Heritage Auctions and Robert A. Siegel auction galleries regularly feature rare examples of the 1 cent Washington with realized prices ranging from $100 to over $1,000, depending on the condition and certification. If you believe you have a potentially valuable version of the Washington 1 cent stamp, the first step is to identify its exact type using a specialized stamp catalog like the Scott Specialized Catalog of United States Stamps. Look at the stamp's perforation measurements, paper texture, color tone, and watermark, if present. Once you've narrowed down its identification, consider getting it professionally certified by organizations such as PSE, Professional Stamp Experts, the Philatelic Foundation, or APS, American Philatelic Society. Certified stamps are far more appealing to serious buyers and are more likely to sell at premium prices. Proper scanning and clear photography also help in listing your stamps on digital platforms. Always show the front and back, and provide any relevant history or previous appraisal documentation. At Stamps Old World UK, we believe that every stamp tells a story. The 1 cent George Washington stamp is not just a piece of paper, it's a link to American heritage, a symbol of early 20th century design and politics, and for some collectors, an item of serious monetary value. Whether your stamp is worth a few dollars or a few hundred, it still represents a rich slice of history. Collecting stamps like the Washington 1 cent gives us a glimpse into the past and reminds us of how nations once communicated, celebrated their leaders, and expressed their values through these miniature works of art. So if you have this stamp in your collection, don't rush to discard it or sell it in a hurry. Take the time to evaluate its condition, research its issue, and consider its story. And if you're just starting out as a collector, let this stamp be the beginning of your journey into a hobby that blends art, history, and real-world value. Next up, the 1 cent George Washington green stamp from the mid-1800s. This stunning piece, with its bold green color and regal portrait of George Washington, is not just a collector's favorite, it's a cornerstone of early American philately. If you've ever come across this stamp in an old album or inherited collection, you may be holding more than just paper. You could be holding a valuable relic of the 19th century. Today, we will explore its origins, its incredible variations, and most importantly, its market value in today's dollars. Whether you're an experienced stamp collector or just curious about the worth of what you found in a drawer, this in-depth guide is for you, right here on Stamps Old World UK. The stamp in focus today is none other than the classic 1 cent George Washington stamp from the 1851 to 1861 issue, known to collectors worldwide as the imperforate green Washington. This stamp features a profile of America's first president in bold engraving, surrounded by laurel leaves and the classic inscription, U.S. postage, at the top and 1 cent at the bottom. Unlike later versions, this early issue is imperforate, meaning it had no perforations along the edges and had to be manually cut from a sheet with scissors or knives. This gives each surviving stamp a unique look depending on how it was cut. Issued originally in 1851, and reissued in slightly modified forms throughout the following decade, this stamp holds historical significance. It reflects a young nation building its communication system and celebrating its founding ideals through the power of printed mail. Now, let's move straight into what everyone wants to know, the value. The market price for the 1 cent George Washington green stamp varies dramatically depending on condition, margin size, paper type, color shade, and most importantly, authenticity. A typical used example with tight or uneven margins may only bring in between $20 to $75, especially if it has a heavy cancellation mark. But if you're holding one in mint and used condition, the value can shoot up to $300 to $800 depending on centering and gum. For a well-centered and used example with full original gum and certification from a recognized grading service like the Philatelic Foundation or PSE, The price can even exceed $1,000 to $3,000 at auction. Incredibly, certain rare plate varieties, re-entries, or stamps with unusual color tones, such as deep blue-green or yellowish-green shades, have been known to sell for over $5,000 when accompanied by expert verification. Collectors also search for specific plating positions, as each position on the original printed plate produced a slightly different look due to the engraving technique. Some positions show doubling or re-entry marks, which are minor engraving flaws that occurred during the plate creation process. These re-entries are highly collectible and can drastically raise a stamp's value. The famous Scott catalog numbers associated with these include Scott number 9 for the 1852 to 1855 version and Scott number 20 for the 1857 re-engraved version with added detail. If you have one of these and it's in good shape, you are potentially sitting on a piece worth several hundred, if not thousands, of dollars. Another major factor in determining value is the margin size. Because these stamps were hand-cut, the size of the white space around the green frame, known as the margin, is very important. Stamps with large, balanced margins on all four sides are significantly more valuable than those cut too close to the design or trimmed into the image. Some stamps were even used in bisects, where they were cut in half and used as half-value postage during times of shortage, and these bisected uses, especially on original envelopes, are highly collectible and command even greater market prices. In 2025, the philatelic market continues to see high demand for early American classics, and the 1 cent green Washington remains one of the most collected and studied stamps in U.S. history. Major auction houses like Robert A. Siegel Auction Galleries, Spink, and Heritage Auctions routinely feature these stamps in their high-profile sales, often accompanied by rich provenance and certificates. It's not uncommon to see top-grade examples of this stamp exceed their estimated value during heated bidding wars. On the other hand, lower-grade or damaged versions are still desirable as fillers for collectors aiming to complete a full classic U.S. set. If you believe you own one of these green 1 cent Washington stamps, your first step should be identification. Carefully examine the stamp under magnification. Look for signs of re-entry in the design, note the exact shade of green, and check for margin balance. Then consult a Scott specialized catalog or seek help from an experienced philatelist. Getting a certificate of authenticity from the Philatelic Foundation, professional stamp experts, or American Philatelic Society can provide assurance of its value and make it more marketable if you decide to sell. Presentation is also important. Place the stamp in a protective mount or transparent sleeve, and make sure to take high-resolution images of both the front and back when listing online or sharing with experts. At Stamps Old World UK, we believe every stamp is more than just ink and paper. It is a reflection of a nation's pride, history, and the human effort to connect across distances. The 1 cent green George Washington stamp is a perfect example, a relic of early American ambition, of artistry, of historical storytelling in miniature form. Whether your stamp is worth $20 or $5,000, the value lies not only in its monetary worth but in its significance as a preserved piece of history. So if you enjoyed this deep dive video and you're excited to learn more about rare stamps from the United States and beyond, don't forget to subscribe to Stamps Old World UK, like the video, and leave a comment below if you own a 1 cent Washington or any other classic issue. You never know, your collection might hold a hidden treasure. Until next time, keep collecting, keep discovering, and remember, every stamp has a story, and here at Stamps Old World UK, we help you tell it.